All right. Can you hear me now? How's that? Thanks for tipping me off that the mic was not working. Anyway, welcome to another conversation at the table. How's your Monday going? My Monday is going kind of like that was just a few minutes ago. It's the whole day's kind of been like that. If you'd like to leave a comment, feel free to do so in the comment section. Already some of you were doing that for me. I'm checking it right here just to make sure that we can see your comments. But feel free to leave comments in the comment section, and as always, leave a prayer request here. There's going to be opportunity to do that later as well. Leave prayer requests. We're going to be praying for you here at the table throughout this week, and we got a team that will be looking at the prayer requests and praying with me as well. So feel free to leave questions, comments, and prayer requests in the comment section. So yesterday, I found out that my son is an artist. He made his first painting, took his first stab at painting during our shelter in place, and he's actually pretty good at it. My son's also been spending some time as a gamer. Gamers are an interesting subculture. If you have a gamer in the house, they're probably having a lot of fun right now because this is what they dreamed of. They're probably wondering what the big deal is. Long periods of time by themselves in a room with a computer and food. Yeah, they do this all the time. That's the gamer. They've got their games and they've got their subcultures, and they can go for long periods of time without talking to anybody but their communities, whether it's Minecraft, Pokemon, Call of Duty, Fortnite. Those games all represent different communities, different friends playing those different games, and now the rest of us are learning a little bit of what that is like right now, and it's probably a little more acute. You know, the isolation, though, that gamers also talk about and feel, that is also a reality for us. And it's a reality for us whether we like it or not. Judging by what I see and what I hear online, isolation can affect us in ways that we don't even realize. You know, most of us have been stuck at home now for going on about 2 weeks. So when we're here at the home and in our homes, the novelty at being at home all alone and by ourselves, even the idea of being on vacation, that's all worn off. And when we're here and the novelty is worn off, then we resort to all sorts of other things. I hope that some of you are engaged in things that are productive. Obviously not all of us are playing nonstop video games right now, but there are other things, though, that we do nonstop, and I feel it, and I hear it, and I see it. So I can tell, especially like when I'm getting on Facebook, that some of us are watching cable news 24/7. So instead of doing video games all the time, we're doing cable news all the time. Other of us are spending lots of time scrolling through our Facebook feeds and reading Twitter accounts. And all of this is affecting us in ways that we don't realize. Some of you, and again, all of us are in close quarters, but some of us are in close quarters with family members, spouses, and children that we've built a lifestyle of avoiding. And I'm not using that in a negative sense per se, but we like the space. We like the fact that we are able to leave our homes every day and go spend some distance from the spouse, go spend some distance from the kids. The distance becomes a way of avoiding conflict. It has become a mechanism whereby we cope with oil and water personalities. And now with the distance gone, that's a lot more difficult, isn't it? And I could continue, just the idea of not being or not having life and what we think of as normal. And normal for many of us has become an obsession now. We get frustrated and angry that life isn't normal. We just want everything to go back to normal. And that has a reciprocal effect on those living around us. Normal has now become a heart idol. We've wrapped our hearts around getting back to normal. And a lot of times we've totally forgotten that normal wasn't all that great either. And all of this is precipitated by a need for control. We want control, and now life is out of our control. So when life is out of sorts, life is not normal, it's not life that's the problem, it's our response. It's stuff going on inside that's problematic, that need for control, those underlying fears. And all of that then drives decisions, drives interactions. Anxiety creeps in. And again, that anxiety can be fueled by just spending an inordinate amount of time watching the 24-hour news cycle on the computer or the internet and scrolling through those Facebook feeds. And all that's affecting us in ways that are negative. So today's passage that we're looking at in our conversation here at the table comes from Philippians 4. And Philippians 4 contains some of the most misused verses in all of the Bible. One of them is it's toward the back of Philippians 4. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It means I can score another touchdown. We're not looking at that today. But Philippians 4 is one of those places where a lot of this gets misused, and it's because it's taken out of its context. Philippians 4 is the story of two ladies who can't get along. Two ladies who are valuable contributors to Paul's ministry in Philippi. And they were partners in his gospel ministry. And we don't know why, but apparently they're not getting along. And they can't stand each other. And now the rest of the community is being affected, because Paul's words here aren't just for the two ladies, but for everybody. And the community doesn't seem to be helping all that much. The faith community is either one, they're taking sides. That seems to be kind of something that's going on here. They're taking sides with one lady or the other. They're not really helping Paul out in ministry either. And then the other thing is that if they're not taking sides, they're not doing anything about it. They're just watching all this unfold in front of them. They're that Michael Jackson meme with the popcorn. We're just going to watch all this unfold. That doesn't help either. And so Paul talks about it here in Philippians 4, and he addresses this situation. He names these two ladies by name, and he names them for posterity. 1900 plus years later, we still know their names because it's here in the text. And he has some instructions for them. He has some instructions for their church. He has some exhortations that we tend to put in the fancy picture frames and then stick them on the walls of our homes or our offices. But these exhortations, instructions, they all had an original context. And it all has to do with the relationship between these two ladies. So here's what Paul says. And again, reading from Philippians 4 here. I urge Euodia and I urge Syntyche to agree in the Lord. Yes, I also ask you, true partner, to help these women who have contended for the gospel at my side, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your graciousness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Don't worry about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So many of those passages, very familiar to us. And among the exhortations and among the instruction that Paul has for these ladies in the church is this: don't worry about anything. And Paul here is most likely paraphrasing the part of the Sermon on the Mount. He's using Jesus' words. And Jesus is saying the same thing in the Sermon on the Mount. He's reminding these two ladies in the believing community at Philippi that Jesus had something to say to us about our anxiety. And he says, don't worry about anything. And broken relationships like is going on here, they can create a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear, a lot of what ifs. And we begin to focus on the other person. We begin to go scroll through things in our heads, and we start to think about what's wrong with the other person and what caused a broken relationship. And when we have all sorts of things, we fear loss of control going on. And instead of focusing on what's going on and whatever caused the break in the relationship, Paul is saying you need to focus on Jesus. Give the problem to Jesus. He will calm your heart toward the other person. He will calm the community. He will calm your heart toward the situation. So for us, even though we may not have broken relationships in all of this, there's still a principle here. We still have anxiety. We have fear. We fear a lot of anxiety about COVID-19 and what's going on in our communities, all those unknowns, even what is known. And we roll through all those what ifs in our heads. And we spend time then trying to bring some salve and some ointment onto the fear and our anxiety, so we start watching the news 24/7. We spend time on Facebook trying to take our minds off of our fears. And then we lock in on stuff that seems to offer hope and solutions that seem to be, we're not hearing this anywhere else, we're finding it right here. And we lock in on that, and we don't realize, a lot of this is junk science, it's fake news, but it seems real, and so we're going to lock into this, and it's all part of that fear and anxiety. Others of us aren't doing that. Some of us have turned to the bottle, or we're relying a little more on our prescription meds. So all of these things, the news, 24-hour news cycle, Facebook feeds, Twitter feeds, alcohol, it's all ways that we self-medicate against and within COVID-19's, world that we live in right now. And we don't realize it, but now we are looking to all of these things, whether it's the news, whether it's easy solutions, whether it's our Facebook feeds, Twitter feeds, alcohol, we're looking to that to save us. We have now decided that, and again, we don't think this externally, but we are internally then thinking these things are going to save me from COVID-19. And that becomes what I put my trust in. That becomes what I obsess myself with. And so I'm saving myself from myself. I'm saving myself from my anxiety through these things. And in the end, then find that these things don't deliver salvation. They don't deliver on what's promised. They don't provide me with the comfort that I need. In fact, they help this anxiety spiral out of control. Last week, in writing about some of this and writing about some of the fake news and junk science that's going on, one of the writers at Wired magazine last week had an interesting thought, and it runs to the heart of looking to these things to save us. Maren McKinney said this about the large amounts of bad information being passed around on the internet. And she says, scared citizens are looking for sources of authority and for things that can keep them safe. Looking for sources of authority, looking for stuff that will keep us safe. And fear and anxiety will do that to us and have us believing things that aren't necessarily true. And looking for sources of authority outside of those guardrails and things that society has already given us. Because we're looking for something that's going to keep us safe. And when we find ourselves now in front of the 24-hour news channel or looking to Facebook or looking to our Twitter feed, and we find ourselves spiraling, I think we need to stop and ask ourselves, especially as we look at Philippians 4, it's the question we ask ourselves is, what are we afraid of? What are we afraid of? Just like Yodia and Syntyche, we need to be reminded to not worry about anything, but to give it to Jesus, who hears, who listens, who cares, and we need to reach out to others. Paul's words here again are not just for these two ladies, they're for the entire community. We need Jesus and we need each other. Jesus has given us community to rely on and to support each other. And so we need each other in these anxious moments. So if you have anxiety or you feel like this fear is overwhelming, and that can happen really fast, and we don't even realize it, and all of a sudden we're in this spiral. If you feel like that's what's happening, if you feel like the world is closing in too fast and you want help, there's 3 things I've got for you right now. One is if you want someone to listen to you, you want somebody to pray for you and with you, don't be anxious. Instead, reach out. Reach out to me. Reach out to the table. Reach out to your family. Reach out to people who care for you. The other thing is, for those of you who have been self-medicating, and again, you feel like this is spiraling out of your control, you're trying to dull the pain, you're trying to dull the anxiety, and you're trying to get help from your alcohol or drug and prescription drugs, there are helps. 1-800-662-HELP. If you're worried about your medication and medicine, there's also help right here in the RGV, Frontier Direct Primary Care, in partnership with the Culture of Life Medical Ministries in Harlingen, has a team of volunteers and physicians that are ready to help you. So you can visit frontierdirectcare.com. By the way, I'm going to have all this information in the comment section after we're done. Click on the free telemedicine COVID-19 and you can register for help online. There will be somebody to talk to you. And the whole thing is to help especially underinsured families with resources. This is, again, someplace that can help. We want to help. Take advantage of these helps, whether it's the hotline, whether it's this resource here that we have in our own community. And then the third thing is, ask yourself about your online and your cable news habits. Ask yourself a series of questions, and again, I can't exhaust all the questions, but things like, is this time well spent? What else could I be doing with my time? Does this habit tend to make me angry or anxious all the time? Boy, that's something that happens for me. If I show up, or if I find myself, and I find myself scrolling through Facebook or looking at Twitter, and I'm a news junkie, so I read a lot of news. If I find myself starting to get angry and upset about this, and I don't even know why, I'll just stop like, why am I angry? Why is this I'm feeling tense all of a sudden. Then that's probably time I need to withdraw. So, does this habit tend to make me angry with people, tend to make me angry with society, make me angry at certain parties or people that I'm seeing on the internet? Does it make me anxious all the time? Does what I'm reading cause me to mistrust my community leaders and the role they play in keeping our cities and communities safe? That's a big one. Is this healthy for me? Is it healthy for the people I'm around? Is this ultimately love for my neighbor? Here's one thing too, when it comes to this online scrolling. If what we're seeing on Twitter and what we're seeing on Facebook and some of our other social medias, Instagram, if it starts with, here's what the media is not telling you, there's probably a good reason why you haven't heard it. And it's probably something that you just need to scroll on past. A lot of times, that's at the front end of something because what's to follow is bad information. It's not true, but somebody's trying to get you to buy in. It's almost as if the underlying assumption is, if the world only knew this, we would save ourselves from COVID-19. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's being buried. All those different thoughts, that's all part of the interfere and online anxiety. And if it ends with, please share this with everybody you know, it's probably something we shouldn't be sharing. It's almost always a sure bet that it's something that not everybody needs to know. So, those three things. Reach out to somebody, talk to me, talk to somebody at the table, reach out to a family member, take advantage of the hotline, and then ask yourself a series of questions about your online habits or your news habits. This is important. I'm saying this as a pastor in our community, burdened for the people that are both in my flock and the people that are around me here in my neighborhood. So again, don't worry about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. There's the promise that follows. Don't worry about anything. Give it to Jesus. When you do that, the peace of God guards our hearts. In fact, the peace of God is guarding our hearts already. We just need to remind ourselves of that. So, that's today's conversation at the table. As always, leave the comments in the section below. Leave your prayer requests. Contact us through Messenger. Contact us through the table phone number if you need somebody to talk to. I will be posting the 1-800 number and the Harlingen Culture of Life information in the comments below. Stay connected to the table. We will continue to have these conversations right here on our Facebook page all week. We're going to have a Bible study again this Thursday at noon on Zoom, and we'll give you information about how to connect with that. So there's lots of ways to stay connected. And remember, all of us, we are loved by Jesus for the love of Los Fresnos. Have a fantastic afternoon.